Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So many people in China are probably having whiplash because a couple weeks ago, one of the official news agencies was kind of asking people not to hoard. Don't hoard. And now we have panic buying going on after an official source tells people you better stockpile food.
Right, so I bet you guys feel a lot like that here. You hear one thing this week, another thing the next week. But one thing we know for sure is that we all really should be stocking up, I feel. Anyway, that's something that I don't feel wishy-washy about in any way.
No, and as we've shared and we've said before, my personal view is it's money in the bank because we know we're going into an inflationary, potentially hyperinflationary period where, what you pay today is going to be much more tomorrow. We're not heading into deflation on basic goods. That is obvious. And, I could just share what I've found. Coconut oil, for instance, 9 months time, it went up 33%. And that might not look bad compared to some of the price increases we're going to be seeing. And we'll let you guys know. Maybe we'll even do a video when we go shopping in the next couple of days again. So, reading this article from Zero Hedge, central planners are at it again. In September, China ordered the country's top state-owned energy companies to secure supplies for the winter at all costs. That was a big statement, a little phrase there, at all costs. Now they're telling households to stockpile food ahead of winter, sparking wild conspiracies among netizens about heightening tensions with Taiwan, because a lot of people took this whiplash moment, hey guys, don't hoard, to go ahead, stockpile, as being a sign that perhaps WAR with Taiwan is imminent.
Mm-hmm.
Now we know that likelihood has been increasing. And we see it's a new China out there. They're very much emboldened. They're going to a different place now in asserting themselves. But because the power structure, the true power structure, is behind them and wants this to happen. According to Bloomberg, the Ministry of Commerce told households Monday to stock up on food in case of emergencies after a resurgence of the plague upon the land. Heavy rains also sparked vegetable prices to jump and the onset of colder weather. And, where we are, we don't, often get below freezing, but it looks like we're going to be very close to that mark. And we did get our greenhouse up, our big greenhouse up, and we have a small one we're going to be putting up in the next day or two as well. And we'll share that with you guys. So the directive was released on the government's Weibo account. A similar platform to Twitter stated, Ministry of Commerce encourages households to stockpile daily necessities as needed. As soon as this news came out, all the old people near me went crazy panic buying in the supermarket, wrote one Weibo user. I think things are getting kind of tense out there.
Mm-hmm.
They are getting tense. We've noticed that, and many people have noticed that, people on the whole seem a little bit sharper, a little edgier, a little tenser, with good reason in many cases. And then some of it could be, not just the economic climate, not just the fact that things are getting a little bit more concerning to the average person that maybe has had his head in the sand for many, many years.
Right. The awakening is definitely happening and people are asking questions. And you guys that are so full of knowledge that have been following this for years and years and years, this is your time to kind of, shine, absolutely shine, and step on the stage and be ready for people who are going to need, their questions answered.
So the Economic Daily, a Communist Party-backed newspaper, told netizens not to have too much of an overactive imagination now, adding that the directive's purpose was to make sure citizens could feed their families in case of a lockdown. The weather has been a significant concern in China as we are heading into a La Nina with cooler weathers, and temperatures across China are plunging, and the power crisis is worsening as demand for electricity generation ticks higher, straining coal supplies. I just want to share with you guys again that it's good to have an alternative source of heat. You know, we had at least 300 people, probably way more than that, die in Texas and in the surrounding states due to that unusual cold snap that everybody was totally unprepared for because it doesn't usually happen, right? And it feels like we could be experiencing the same sort of thing again this year. And the guides had said way back after when it originally happened last year in Texas and the surrounding states that it would happen multiple times in this winter. So, you know, again, we've talked about the artificial flavoring that is available as well. And of course, we have this conflict brewing between the U.S. of A and the fine dining ware country as well. And then, of course, we know that there are those that have strings attached to all the players. As we were talking about, ultimately, this chessboard is controlled by the same beings, and they are playing both sides. So we know extreme weather in early October destroyed crops, and one of the largest vegetable growing regions was really hard hit. At the end of October, broccoli, cucumbers, spinach prices more than doubled in weeks. This is why, you know, it's so imperative that we get ourselves taking care of ourselves as best as that looks in whatever way. So, you know, we weren't going to have the money or the wherewithal to necessarily get a wood burning stove in the house because there is none in the house. So, you know, we secured some propane and a small propane heater that can be used indoor. There's like Mr. Buddies that you can get. And so, you know, I got one of those and then was thinking about it and then got a second one that we could also use out in the greenhouse if things got really bad. And then propane, you know, you have to have the propane because we know there's shortages of everything. So, you know, again, you want to have some and think in terms for the long haul. Thankfully, we should not have many nights where we are that go, you know, below freezing. And, you know, we were testing ourselves a little bit last winter in New Mexico with just using a tiny little portable space heater for that place. And, you know, we were fine in the 50s. We got used to being in the 50s and not bringing the heat up into the mid 60s or 70. And, you know, again, in the old days, you know, if you've been familiar with some of the older houses that were constructed, again, it was all wood fire. I mean, that's how you kept yourself warm in the old days, but people survived even in really cold areas.
They did. They were very strong, very strong.
You know, that's one of the things that we, and this article ends with, so what does it mean for the average American or Canadian or person over in the UK, Australia, New Zealand? Of course, Australia and New Zealand are in the area down under, so they have a different set of things they're facing as we head into our winter. They're heading into their summer. So Colorado hits 80%, you know, as far as that dates for man topic that we're talking about, you know, regarding the plague upon the land. 80%. And yet, you know, the ERs are swamped with seriously ill patients, although many don't have the plague upon the land. Okay, so, you know, that's kind of an interesting thing. And one of the things that, again, we've been sharing with you guys is get yourself as strong and healthy as you can. In this world, we have to be detoxing constantly. You're detoxing and then you're flooding the body with good nutrients. One thing that many people have adopted is intermittent fasting, and I love it too, because the days that I do say intermittent fast and don't eat for 20 hours, Those seem to be my most productive days. Now you could intermittent fast and not eat for 16 hours and eat in an 8-hour window. You could decide, I'm going to eat lunch at 12 and I'm going to eat dinner at say 7:30, and that's it. And that's fine. That will work to help help your body give itself time to clear out the impurities. There are more impurities in this world than there were probably when people were in wagon trains going across the prairies. This world is so toxic. It's so toxic with all the chemicals spewing into the air, the poisoning of the water, all the little BOTSs, flying around everywhere. And it was interesting. I didn't know that word was the word for a certain type of fly.
Right.
BOTS. Anyway, we need to be detoxing all the time. You should be detoxing and then flooding your system with good nutrients. What does flooding your system with good nutrients look like? Well, juicing perhaps. And again, everybody has different concerns. If you're diabetic, you might want to juice more along the lines of, say, cucumber and kale and things that don't have a high sugar load. But add to it things like turmeric, ginger, maca, Siberian ginseng, spirulina, chlorella, wheatgrass, chia seeds. Are wonderful. We have like 25 pounds of chia seeds because they're so nutrient dense and they're just so healthy for you. Flaxseed you could add to. You want to be, again, alternating really between flooding your system with nutrient dense foods, and then giving your body longer periods of rest to clear out these toxins. Because you know what? We are bombarded with so much. Our immune systems are so suppressed in this global situation that we find ourselves in. And emergency rooms are absolutely loaded. They're too full all across the country. And many people are scratching their heads. Many doctors have no explanation for what's going on. And they're literally sticking people in hallways because they have nowhere else to put them. Sometimes they might have to wait over a day to be seen by a DR. And even the youth are dropping. And this is so sad. I mean, how many of you growing up knew of somebody that was healthy, strong and healthy, and an athlete perhaps even, and see them drop of apparently quote unquote natural causes? And in my school, which we had quite a few people. I think our graduating classes were in the 4 digits, so it was a pretty good sized school. But we didn't really have any of that. We did have a horrible car accident that happened, but not like this. And here we see Pennsylvania high school senior dies of sudden cardiac incident after helping at a high school soccer game. It's horrible to see. Sudden cardiac arrest, no drugs were involved. And this is actually fairly common now. Another one, Pennsylvania boy 12, died at basketball practice. We never expected anything like this to happen. Again, sudden cardiac arrest. 3 high school athletes, this is over in Indianapolis, die of sudden cardiac arrest. Wow, this is horrible. Tribute held for an Oceanside student who died from a heart condition suddenly. And this is Oceanside, California, on the other side of the country. 13-year-old. And thankfully, this lady had her wits about her because she saved another 13-year-old who collapsed on the football field because she knew how to do CPR. And a lot of times we could get that training for free at various locations. You'll find it if you just look for it. A lot of times, I mean, I've been certified more times than I can count with the different work that I've had to do. So, knowing CPR and first aid, this is something that we don't always talk about when we're talking about prepping, but that's a form of prepping.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I mean, a lot of things can look different. So there you go.
Yeah, so again, be prepared for everything. And again, besides food, obviously, Band-Aids, bandages, sterilizers, all these type of things we should have available as well as the knowledge. Like we've talked so much about learning how to grow things, learning how to do things, putting together a greenhouse and things like that. But, learning those life-saving skills, so important. Meanwhile, schools are grappling with a growing shortage of teachers and substitutes. And Mainers are going to get to decide on their first right to food amendment in the U.S. Maybe this will sweep the country, and you could tell all those organizations that are out there that say you can't have, a tomato plant in your front yard because that goes against our code. You have to have your grass cut in somewhere in between 2.5 and 4 inches. It can't get any higher or any lower. You can't have a garden out in the front yard, heaven no, but you can go ahead and spread all the toxic poisons you want in the front yard to keep it looking good because it's going to drive our property values up. Mm-hmm. Well, when people get hungry, I don't think they're going to be worrying so much, about that. They're going to want to just be able to feed themselves and their family. And so this is really good, I think. And hopefully Mainers will pour out in huge numbers and say, you know what? We got to be able to grow our own food and not depend on any corporations or any government entities at all. Let's get independent. Let's really be independent.
I've always thought that when we teach our children, we should be teaching the children these things first thing, in preschool, about how to grow your own food, how to build a house, at least give them the idea. Here's some Legos, build a house, start somewhere for things that are going to help you survive.
Do you know that plants use RNA to communicate with their neighbors? Now, this got Cindy's eyes going because, well, do you want to comment?
Well, Native Americans from one tribe to the next could actually tell trees information, and the trees would deliver it. Native Americans are they have a very strong abilities, big pineal glands, and they have the ability to talk to the earth. And this is what we talk about if we hadn't been tampered with so much, we would have the ability to speak to the earth and reach each other in far distances. And they started this training, from childhood, and trees literally talk and they send messages. It's so cool.
Yeah, and we've shared with you guys before, like Cindy's father comes from the Creek lineage, and on my own father's side, I believe it's Cherokee. It was basically one of those Trail of Tears incidents that took so many indigenous people, from their homelands, like in the southeast, and brought them to Oklahoma. As my great I think 3 greats, maybe it was 4, grandmother was born on an Indian reservation there in Oklahoma, way back. And so, it was interesting too, because like with my dad was definitely the quiet, strong, silent type, and animals gravitated to him. They just gravitated to him. Even animals that were suspicious of everybody but their owner, they would end up on his lap because of his energy. And again, that comes from being in contact with the ground, with the divine feminine, the earth underneath your feet. That whole side of our being has been so, the word that comes to mind is castrated. It's been totally cut off. It's been pulled by the roots out from so many of us. And we need to cultivate that. Again, when the earth changes would come in earnest without the artificial flavoring, which is coming at some point in time, we would be able to know when to go north, when to go south, when to go east, when to go west, because we would be warned. We would know. Just like The flocks of birds in the sky all of a sudden turn in unison. We could do this as well. We can be in that type of communion with the earth itself.
Absolutely, and it's just been taken away from us, but we can get it back. We do have an opportunity to get it back, and I feel that opportunity is at our door.
This is talking about fungal networks that transmit warnings or transfer resources. Again, RNA. It's all about the DNA. It's all about the connectivity. DNA is a program, and it can be rewritten at any time, naturally or artificially. But it, again, is also something that's not just in the physical body, and it transmits from lifetime to lifetime as we pick up more experiences and learn and grow in our soul's journey. Plants are intelligent. Everything is intelligent. Everything is consciousness. Plants do communicate. And I've quoted before, there was a study where they had one particular person that would walk into the room, and every time he'd walk over to a plant, and he'd be mean to it, basically, breaking pieces off, burning pieces, stuff like that. It got to the point that every plant in the room would send out a signal as soon as he walked through the door. It was basically like them all screaming in terror, because plants do have consciousness. And they can communicate, and we can communicate. And that again gets into the elemental kingdom, which we'll be talking more about. I know to many people, this is just like they can't understand this because they've never been taught this, but it's right there. If we want to look, we could find out more about it. So this is fascinating, and this is really interesting reading because we could relate this to other things that are out there as well when we're talking about RNAs and altering their gene expression patterns by binding to messenger RNAs and preventing certain genes from being translated into proteins, RNA interference. So thank you guys so much for your support. And we want to thank all of our Patreons, also those that are supporting us on Ko-Fi, because Ko-Fi you could also do a one-time support for the channel or monthly. And then everybody that is enjoying medicinal foods, use coupon code EEA for an extra 5% off your order. And as you fill up the cart at checkout, you can get up to 25% off and free shipping. Stay prepared out there in every way. God bless and namaste.
Namaste.